各位线上的朋友们，大家好！太极门气功养生学会及各大宗教机关与团体，为了全人类如今深陷于疫情、战争、极端气候等天灾人祸之中，特别在今年的10月16日举办良心领航点亮希望、爱与和平全球祈福大会。愿人人说良心话，做良心事，用善心善念扭转世局。现在就让我们一起来看看当天的新闻报道。
祥龙孔雀飞舞，手持法器的祈福仙子呈现祥和之境。这里呈现的是几乎快要失传的古传祈福仪典，来祈求上苍的怜悯，庇佑世人平安。良心领航点亮希望，爱与和平全球祈福大会今天在台湾大学综合体育馆盛大举行。面对疫情、天灾人祸加剧，人人都希望世界祥和平安。即使在阴雨绵绵的天气里，仍然不减热情。
良心领航，点亮希望。
在这个关键时刻，太极门掌门人洪道子博士呼吁大家携手团结，勇敢面对未来的挑战。
面对全球共同的危机，世人更应手携手，心连心，不畏艰难，勇往直前，为我们的后代子孙创造一个真正可永续的未来。谢谢各位，谢谢。
世界之爱和平钟敲响，清澈的钟声在这个时刻安抚人心，传达对和平的渴望。
透过钟声来净化人心，透过钟声来把我个人对这个世界许的这个心愿传达给上天，传达给世界。那天天的提醒我自己要去落实我今天所许下的一个对世界的好的心愿。
众人吟诵祈祷文，各界宗教代表齐聚一堂，与太极门掌门人洪道子博士带领各界人士共同祝祷。活动上串联全球静心1分钟，全球参与者相当踊跃，在指定的时间里，一国接一国，一个时区接着一个时区，共同为全球祝祷。疫情以来，大家都体认到一个看不见的病毒，一场远方的战争，冷不及防的天然灾害都不再是遥不可及的事。全球团结的这一刻，男女老幼齐聚，透过祈愿从自身做起，为自己及全球创造新的契机。记者台北报道。
太极门就是这样一个充满爱与正能量的气功武术修行门派。掌门人洪道子博士多年来带领弟子自力自费走遍全球5大洲101个国家，透过武术、舞蹈等中华文化与世界各国进行交流，宣扬爱与和平的理念。这样优质的团体竟然遭受台湾政府以法税双杀的手段迫害长达26年，至今仍未获得应有的平反与道歉。大家如果以为生活在民主法治的台湾不可能发生这样不公不义的情事，那么您一定要看看谁偷走了他们的青春这部影片，看完您就会明白太极门案为何会被专家学者称之为台湾之法税228。
Taiwan, a magnificent island, hailed by many as a beacon of democracy in a region plagued by non-democratic regimes. Visitors to Taiwan not only appreciate its natural beauties. They visit gardens, museums, and temples, and enjoy a millennia-old Chinese culture. The rich variety of religions present in Taiwan testifies religious liberty is affirmed and protected. Yet, on December 19, 2021, visitors to Taipei noticed thousands of people in the streets, protesting that for 25 years they had not been protected by democracy, and their right to religious liberty had been violated. In the last few years, scholars and human rights activists throughout the world have often heard the name of these protesters. Taiji Men is a menpai, similar to a school of Qigong, martial arts, and self-cultivation. Dr. Hong Taozu, the Grand Master, Zhang Menren, of Taiji Men, has inherited the wisdom of esoteric Taoism and studied Qigong, martial arts, medicine, yin-yang philosophy, life wisdom, and heart kung fu since a very young age. After martial law was lifted in Taiwan, he started to widely accept disciples, teaching them a path to good health and happiness. There are now 15 Taiji Men academies. Dr. Hong also promoted high-profile initiatives for world peace and brought traditional Taiji Men culture abroad through over 3,000 cultural events and martial arts performances. Dr. Hong has visited more than 100 countries and has become a familiar figure in international peace gatherings and initiatives held at the United Nations. In 2014, Taiji Men was part of a coalition that launched the movement of an era of conscience. The initiative was praised by offices of the United Nations and the heads of state of several countries, with the participation of people in 200 nations, and eventually led the UN to proclaim April 5 as the International Day of Conscience. The bell's sound has also a spiritual significance in many Eastern and Western religions. Dr. Hong designed and supervised the construction of the Bell of World Peace and Love, which was first rung in Singapore in the year 2000. Taiji Men invites world political, cultural, and religious leaders to ring them, making a wish for peace. Dr. Hong devotes a large part of his time to teach Dizzy, similar to disciples, and interview each of them before they are accepted as Dizzy. There is a traditional Taiji Men ceremony after the acceptance. Dizzy show their gratitude to Dr. Hong by giving gifts in the form of the so-called red envelopes to Shifu, Grand Master, as is traditional in Chinese Qigong Menpai. Everybody understands this is part of a personal relation Dizzy have with their Shifu. Several presidents and other high authorities in Taiwan have praised Taiji Men and Dr. Hong for their contribution to the public welfare of Taiwan and for being excellent ambassadors of Chinese culture throughout the world.
Under
the Zhang Menren's leadership, Taiji Men has actively participated in international events, raised Taiwan's global visibility. In the future, I also hope that Taiji Men under Dr. Hong's leadership will continue to work with the government that will see Taiwan.
How is it possible that, at the same time, Taiji Men is praised and persecuted? When martial law ended in 1987, religious liberty was officially proclaimed. However, during a long post-authoritarian phase, the ruling party still expected religious organizations to actively support the government. Those who didn't were persecuted. The 1996 repression targeted some of the largest religious movements in Taiwan, including the Buddhist organization Fo Guangshan and Yiguan Dao. Notwithstanding its caution in not taking political sides, Taiji Men was also involved in the crackdown, and Dr. Hong was detained together with his wife and two Dizzy. Dr. Hong was falsely and ridiculously accused by a prosecutor who violated the law and abused his authority of raising goblins, a practice totally foreign to Taiji Men. On July 13, 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of Taiji Men defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges. The Supreme Court also declared there was no tax evasion. National compensation for the wrongful detention was given to Dr. Hong and his co-defendants who had been detained. This should have been the end of the Taiji Men case. However, they tried to maintain their tax bills for the years 1991 to 1996, claiming that the money Dr. Hong had received in these years in the red envelopes should not be considered as non-taxable gifts, but as tuition fees for a so-called cram school, a school where pupils receive crash courses, normally in preparation for exams. Different authorities intervened in the controversy, including the Ministry of Education, which has authority on cram schools, and courts of law. All declared that in the Taiji Men case there was no cram school and no tax evasion. For the second time, the Taiji Men case should have ended there, but this did not happen. In 2019, the NTB, in accordance with the ruling of the Supreme Administrative Court and the Taipei High Administrative Court, agreed that tax bills for the years 1991 and 1993 to 1996 should be corrected to zero, but maintained the tax bill for 1992, including penalties. Logically, this did not make sense, as the content of the red envelopes in 1992 was not different from the other years. In this case, the verdict of the criminal section of the Supreme Court of 2007 that found Dr. Hong and Tai Ji-men not guilty of tax evasion. Nonetheless, the NTB refused to cancel the tax bill for 1992. On May 5 and July 23, 2020, the Taipei High Administrative Court wrote twice to the NTB for the central area, asking them to treat 1992 as the other years were treated. This also was to no avail. In August 2020, land belonging to Dr. Hong that had been seized was auctioned by the National Enforcement Agency, then confiscated after 2 auctions were not successful. This property was important for Tai Ji-men, which planned to build a center for self-cultivation on what they consider a sacred land. Hence the protests, which also targeted what Tai Ji-men and others perceived as the unfairness of the Taiwanese tax system in general and the immoral system of bonuses. Why did the Tai Ji-men case last longer with respect to other groups that had been involved in the 1996 crackdown on spiritual movements, and in fact is still not solved after more than 25 years? One answer is that Tai Ji-men refused to compromise with the NTB. By settling, they would have admitted that they had been guilty of tax evasion, something that is both against their principles and factual truth. Ultimately, the Tai Ji-men cases and protests are not about taxes or money. They are about freedom of religion or belief. Tai Ji-men was not raided in 1996 and persecuted ever since, because the authorities really suspected it was guilty of tax evasion. In fact, in 2021, a sensational testimony emerged proving that those who started the Tai Ji-men case knew that the accusation of tax evasion was fabricated. In a video, the late tax collector Shi Yusheng was heard confessing that prosecutor Ho Quan-jen, the main instigator of the persecution of Tai Ji-men, told him to lie to fabricate a false tax case against Dr. Hong and the movement. Why was the lie fabricated? The root cause was the attempt to destroy a spiritual movement that taught its disciples to think with their own heads. Authoritarian bureaucrats and corrupt officials are always afraid of those who dare think independently and follow their own conscience. This is also why thousands in the world admire and respect Dr. Hong and Tai Ji-men. This is why hundreds of scholars and human rights activists support the Tai Ji-men cause. This is why the case of Tai Ji-men was repeatedly denounced in international forums, including at the United Nations.
In June 2021, we brought to attention to the Human Rights Council the case of the Tai Ji-men. We denounced how the tax weapon was used to harm Tai Ji-men. In September, at the 88th Human Rights Council session, we renewed our appeal for Tai Ji-men. This time, we highlighted the confiscation of this Tai Ji-men place of worship by the Taiwanese government.
Those in Taiwan who believe this protest will simply go away with the passing of time are wrong. Protests have now lasted for more than 25 years. As the title of a book about the case suggests, the youth of more than one generation has been stolen, as they had to spend their best years asking time and again for a justice denied. But they did not give up. Generation after generation of Tai Ji-men will continue to fight until the case is solved. More and more in the world will support them. In this sense, we are all Tai Ji-men.
看完影片，相信大家都很清楚太极门案。早在民国96年7月13日，就经最高法院3审判决，确定无罪无税了。然而国税局却迟迟不愿依法行政，撤销违法税单，甚而移送行政执行署强制执行，将太极门的土地违法拍卖， 并且收归国有。台湾号称第一个华人民主灯塔，自由、民主、法治是我们引以为傲的资产。然而时至今日，我们的法税制度仍然存在严重的不公不义，呼吁政府应该立即更正错误，撤销违法税单，还给人民违法拍卖的财产，才是真正实现小英总统所谓的转型正义。今天全民开讲就到这里，最后让我们一起来听一首充满爱与祝福的歌曲，祈愿正义伸张，战争消弭，疫病止息，世界祥和。谢谢大家。
上苍